What is up? Welcome to Probability on the MMA Engine. I am your Bootsy is not happy I'm hosting. I am your substitute host for the night as Brady is on vacation. I am Lou Betya, joined by the architect of the show, Uncle Weezy. Weezy, how are you feeling about this card? I know you're coming off a greasy four-legger. It's a little bit of momentum.
Yeah, a little bit of momentum. Also coming off of hitting the probability parlay last week where we had the over 2.5 rounds for Oliveira Belbita. We had the fight doesn't go to decision for Oliveira versus Dariush, and we had the fight doesn't go to decision for Mallet as well. So that one hit beautifully. We also showed off that trifecta bet. That was the over 2.5 rounds, and the fight starts round 3 for Builder versus whoever beat him. I forgot.
Kyle Nelson.
We're already on to next week, Lou. You know, I mean, that money we made last week, that's already in the bank account. We already got our hookers with it. Now we got to make more this week. So let's go. 14 fights to break down, and there's a lot of spots already sticking out. So I'm looking forward to breaking it down with you in the chat here.
Yeah, I don't know about your probability trifecta, but I know somebody that hit a trifecta and a superfecta this weekend. So just a different sport. But let's get to it. Our first fight of the night at light heavyweight 205. Modestas Bukauskas back after beating Tyson Pedro against Zach Powga, who improbably went to decision with Jordan Wright the last time out. What do we got for this one? The under 2.5 plus 140, over 2.5 coming in at minus 170. These lines are from Bet Online as recently as 10 a.m. when I put all of them in. So if they've moved a little bit, that's why you're seeing a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, you're seeing just a little bit of a move here. Money coming in on this over. When I saw this one, Lou, it opened. I don't know exactly where it opened, but like where it stabilized after it opened was a minus 155 over 2.5. And you could see that the over 2.5 right here is overpriced. You know, we're overpriced by 21.6% when we compare that 42% benchmark to the 63.6% price. We see that these guys have went over 2.5 rounds in a 7-fight sample size, 3 out of 7 times, 42.8% of the time. So we're overpaying there as well. I mean, we're really overpaying on the over 2.5. So if we look at the under 2.5, we see a nice price savings here. We see a nice price savings here. We see a fairly priced line right here. The problem is, in order to cash that bet, one of these guys has to get a finish. Bukauskas or Powga, right? And I mean, I don't think Powga could finish a glass of water. I don't think Bukauskas could finish a glass of water. So I'm leaning the over, but the problem is that, I mean, I'm worried about Zach Powga's chin. I mean, this guy, he got touched once by Muhammad Usman, and he was out cold. He was out before he even hit the canvas. You know, and that was a short little left hook. Maybe he didn't see it coming, but I've seen him dropped on the regional scene too, Lou. So this is one where my stylistic read is that it goes over 2.5 rounds, but that the prop template's showing us that that's overpriced, even though it's a smaller sample size. But at the same time, I mean, I'm worried about Powga's chin enough that I wouldn't bet those overs. But if you ask me now, am I going to bet the unders at 2.5? I would be so unsurprised if neither one of these guys got a finish. So, I mean, this kind of feels like a big stay away from me.
Yeah, and it's Powga's second fight, I guess, under the banner, and it's Bukauskas' second since he came back. So read into what those last 2 fights, what you will. Maybe there was some nerves. We don't really know on top of the numbers here, but seems like a good stay away fight, if you ask
Absolutely.
me. Let's move on to fight number 2 at bantamweight. We got Ronnie Lawrence coming back versus Daniel Argetta, the under 2.5 as of this morning, plus 195. Over 2.5, minus 235. It looks like you have the exact same numbers, which is good. Ronnie Lawrence, not a big finisher. Argetta, limited sample size in the UFC. What do we got for this one?
Yeah, so I don't really know what to do with this one either, because if you look at the overs here, they are overpriced by 15.7% and 12.6% when we compare them to the benchmarks for the division. So we know that we're paying up for these, but, you know, 4 of 5 of their combined UFC fights have seen the scorecards. All 5 have went over 2.5 rounds. So the only one that didn't was Ronnie Lawrence when he got the finish against Vince Cachero late in the 3rd round. That was one fight that finished in the last 2.5 minutes. But am I seeing Argetta finishing Lawrence? Probably not. Am I seeing Lawrence finishing Argetta? Probably not. So I think stylistically, Lou, this is an over. But, I mean, I'm not laying minus 200. There are so many better spots to parlay up here. And you know what? Argetta pressures a lot. I think Ronnie Lawrence's striking is a little bit underrated. This could wind up finishing. It's a fight. I mean, 49% of bantamweight fights finish inside the distance that are 3 rounds. So, these are always coin flips, and now you're paying minus 200 on the fight goes to decision line. It feels like it would be a sweat. This is another stay away for me.
Yeah, me as well. And I know this isn't the type of show for this, but this does seem like a must roster fight for your DraftKings lineups. But that's for Wednesday. That's not for today.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% on that. Both these guys are going to grapple, and when you see 2 grapplers getting in there, that's when you really see the points can pile up quickly.
Now we're on to the first of 3 straight flyweights on the fight. Teresa Bladea coming back against Gabriela Fernandez. Fernandez coming off a loss to Jasmine Jasudavicius. And Bladea, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't have it in front of me, I believe coming off a loss to Natalia Silva.
Yes.
3rd round KO. So interesting fight. Prospects at flyweight. What do we got for this one?
So I've got a bet on this one already. I went with the under 2.5 rounds at plus 200 here. And if we highlight this row, 35.39% of women's flyweight fights go under 2.5 rounds. We're paying a lower price than that. We're paying 33.33%. So a little bit of a break, but stylistically, this is a striker versus grappler matchup, about as plain as it gets. While this is on the feet, Bladea's going to be in trouble. While this is on the ground, Fernandez is going to be in trouble. Somebody's going to be dangerous wherever this fight goes. And from what I've seen on tape from Teresa Bladea, we don't have to worry about her necessarily going out there and striking with Gabby. I think she's going to be going out there, shooting takedowns from the word go, hunting for submissions. And if she doesn't get it early, Gabby might get a finish late. All it'll take is one body kick from Gabby. She's a southpaw versus orthodox matchup. She lands one body kick to that liver, this fight's over. She gets nice step-in knees, good straight punches right down the pipe. So I was kind of surprised. I was expecting to see an under 2.5 number that would be priced significantly higher than this 35.4% finish rate, because both of these ladies finish fights, and they're both going to be dangerous. They're, wherever this fight goes, one of these ladies is going to be very dangerous. So I bet the under 2.5 rounds here at plus 200. I also bet, this was a funny line, on Bet Online right now, Gabriela Fernandez by KO is plus 1,400. Look, Gabriela is not winning minutes here, and she's not subbing this girl. Her only chance is to get a knockout, because you can see Teresa Bladea in her tape going for takedowns 4.5 minutes into the 3rd round and having the pace to be able to push that. So if this fight, the only way that Gabriela Fernandez is winning this fight is if she lands a big shot and turns off the lights at Teresa Bladea. So, for somebody like Fernandez, who's 30% implied probability to win the fight right now on the money line, and then you can get her at plus 1,400, which is 6.67%. They're basically telling you that the knockout is something like less than 20% of her win condition, and that's bullshit. I promise you that. Her knockout is about 90% of her win condition in this spot. Maybe I'm being a little bit hyperbolic there, but still, it's going to be a big chunk of her win condition. So I like Fernandez by knockout at plus 1,400. I like the under 2.5, which I think is available now at plus 195. And I think that there's a lot of value there. And I think that Bladea's got very live for a submission as well.
All right. Yeah, I did think that under was just at glance a little weird. And Fernandez is coming off I had a bet on her, so probably
I bet her by knockout against Jasudavicius. And you saw when that fight was on the feet, she was way better than Jasmine. But Jasmine, we know that she's somebody else that you can count on to push a pace. So I'm going back to the well. I've got 1/10 of a unit on it. It's not a big bet at all. But if it cashes, I'll be up 1.4. And then Not only that, if it cashes and it goes under 2.5 rounds, I'll be up another 2 units from my 1 unit under 2.5 bet at plus 200.
You will, in fact, be going to Sizzler.
You got that right, buddy.
All right. Well, let's move on. We got the son of Josiane Bunez, Felipe Bunez, against the internet darling of MMA, Master Z, Zhumagulov. We don't know what his hair will look like until probably Wednesday. Can't bake that in the line yet. As typical for Zalgas fight, the overs juiced under 2.5 plus 170. Over 2.5 coming back at minus 210. I know that your template can't cap fan sentiment, but as you get into this, do you think we are going to see at least some kind of different Zhumagulov strategy where he knows he just almost can't afford to go to decision anymore?
Yeah, this is so. I watched the tape on this Bunez guy, and he fights a pretty good style for somebody that's as dangerous of a grappler as he is. You know, when you're on the feet, if you're a super dangerous grappler, why not just throw everything with 100% power, not give a shit if you're getting taken down, big head kicks, big jump knees, all that stuff. Because, you know, if you get your kick caught, if you get taken down off of those big actions, you're pretty much right where you want to be. And this guy Bunez will sit on his back and lay there for a while. And with Zhumagulov, I don't know, man. Like, the way that I'm looking at this fight is that we're getting a little bit of a discount here when you compare the benchmark, right, to the implied probability of the line. We got a 3% break here, a 3% break here. This guy Bunez kind of fights like his hair is on fire, man. I mean, like, he just goes out there and he's looking to finish, whether it's with big actions on the feet. And if he sparks you on the feet, he's going to look to lock in a submission. With Zhumagulov, he's been in there with a bunch of grapplers, but those Russian grapplers are different than the Brazilian grapplers. The Brazilian grapplers are submission over position a lot of the time, and they're explosive. They'll chain those submission attempts together. They'll look for the finish. While the Russian grapplers are not nearly as dangerous with submissions, but when they take you down, you tend to stay there and lose a lot of minutes there. So, I mean, I kind of feel like Bunez is a bit of a moment winner, while Zhalgas is a little more of a minute winner, because Zhalgas could be like 4-2 in the UFC. You know, he got sparked by Manel. That fight with Albazi, I felt like was a pretty solid 29-28 for Albazi. And then all the other losses could have went his way. They're all very close fights. So I see more evidence of Zhalgas being a minute winner in this spot and Bunez being a moment winner. The finish only prop right now for Bunez is minus 145. It's a little juiced. I don't know if I'd play that. And as far as the numbers here, I would lean that under because they're big plus money numbers. But I'm not running to the window for it at all.
Weezy, you vanished, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. This thing, whenever I move my mouse, sometimes my camera turns off. So I'm hitting start cam, and then that's the webcam right there. And then now I'm going to have to go into the settings and change it back to the actual camera. So that might happen a couple of times today, you know, but we're professionals here. Maybe not at actually producing videos, but at producing results, betting on over-unders. That we're professionals on.
Absolutely. In case you guys were curious, Jerome Rivera was Zalgas' last finish with a choke. As far as a KO, you have to go back a little over 6 years. But in all fairness, Zalgas is facing dudes that are insanely durable, like the Tyson Nams, like Albazi, like Tajir. Like, he's facing dudes with incredible durability. I don't know about Bunez's durability. I definitely wouldn't compare it to those guys, but we shall see.
We know about it. So let's have a quick look and just make sure that Bunez, he's got 6 losses. He's been subbed twice, never knocked out, right? So, you know, he has been pretty durable in terms of 19 fights, never being knocked out. And he got submitted by Jussier Formiga, a fight that was supposed to take place at 125 pounds, and Formiga showed up at 139. Let me repeat that. Scheduled for 125, Formiga in his LFA debut shows up at 139 and was like, I still want to fight. So they fought, and Bunez was like, all right, I guess I'm not cutting any more weight. And he showed up at like 134 or something. Bizarre fight.
He did fight a lot of bums early, like a lot of can crushers, early. So
yeah, but he's also been over there fighting in ACB against some of the top, control time grapplers. So I mean, he's seen this style that Zhumagulov is gonna bring, and he's fought those type of guys before. But he lost to him, so it's an interesting fight.
That it is, and now we are coming to our third flyweight fight in a row. We got Carlos Hernandez versus Dennis Bondar. Carlos Fernandez coming off getting subbed by Alan Nascimento, was pretty easily taken down and dominated. Dennis Bondar, no shame in losing to Malcolm the Iron Chin Gordon. I guess he broke his arm, or hurt his arm very badly in the first couple of seconds, but he hurt his arm because Gordon was out physicaling him. So my initial read, Weezy, is that at least on the money line, I feel like we're getting a discount on Bondar. Because, I don't know how much you take in the stock, like a fluke injury ending a fight. But this under, I think, is interesting. So just for the record, this plus 162 here, I thought was crazy, considering that Bondar probably has a very clear grappling path here if he wants. What say you, Sir Uncle?
Yeah, dude, I would not bet an over in this fight. Frankly, I'm getting massive fraud vibes from Dennis Bondar. This guy has fought nobody. The most recent example of this is Hussein Ashkabov, who came in with a 23-0 record. And everyone's like, fight? Yeah. What's that?
That's the Emmers fight?
Yeah, he lost to Emmers, exactly. And I mean, the guy's a good fighter. He's got pretty good kickboxing, solid wrestling, and he's beating up these guys in WWFC and these other promotions that nobody's really ever heard of. And it's the same thing with Bondar. Like, you go back in this guy's career, he's fighting on a platform where if you get knocked down, you fall off the platform and roll down like 4 feet. It's fucking bizarre. And he's fighting like the same guys twice. He fought Gennady Gitlin twice. Like anybody was fucking, chomping at the bit for that rematch. He fought Lev Ambasurian twice. Why? I mean, I don't know. I mean, he even lost to a guy twice in his career. Evidently, there's only like 10 dudes in the Ukraine who can come in at below 130 pounds and show up for a fight. And he's fought all of them. And since he went through all of them once, he had to start fighting them over again. And then he gets to the UFC, and people are telling me like, oh, it was a freak injury. No, man, he got his arm hurt in an arm bar, and then he went to post on that arm and the elbow dislocated. That's what happens. He got the first time he stepped into a cage with anybody that even could be remotely called UFC level. He got his arm snapped in 30 seconds and it was over. So I'm getting really big fraud vibes out of Bondar here. Bondar's only been to decision once in his career. So I think in under 2.5 at plus 160, or a fight doesn't go to decision at 42% implied when 2 of their 3 fights have finished under 2.5 rounds, and 10 out of 14 combined scheduled for 3 rounds outside the UFC have finished inside the distance. So, yeah, I like violence in this spot.
Well, we got Mr. Fancy Pants Luke. Thank you for joining the program today. His hometown has been bombed into oblivion. I don't know what his training situation is. Yikes, dude.
I don't know who he was training with prior to the fucking bombing, because like this guy, I mean, like I say, the guys that he's fighting, I mean, they're not on anybody's map. So it is a very interesting fight. I think Carlos Hernandez at plus money is laughable, because at least we know who Carlos Hernandez is. The guy trains at Valley Flow Striking with a bunch of killers. The guy lived past the age of 21 living on the south side of Chicago. That's beating the odds right there. He's a survivor. He's been in there with guys like Barres, Tyra, Altamirano. He's been in LFA. He fought Ballart and Titan. So, we know that he can fight. Bondar, that's still up for debate, because this guy is not beaten. He doesn't have 1 win on his record against anybody that's not like a cab driver or like a sweatshop worker.
Yeah, I'm just glad there was no Malcolm Gordon slander in this whole discussion, since,
not when we could talk about Dennis Bondar.
That's my guy right there. All right, we're going to move on to fight number 6 of the night. We got Mr. Perfect, Kang, against Christian Quinones. This is 6 straight fights on the card where the under 2.5 is plus money. It's plus 145. Over 2.5 comes back at minus 175. Weezy, what do you got for this one?
Yeah, Kang has been an over machine. I mean, he's went over 2.5 rounds 9 of 11 times in the UFC. So, I mean, this guy is, and the guys that he's finishing are lower level guys. I mean, we can go here to their, and you can look, Danab Bakary is his best win by a mile. Then it's Lou Pingyuan, Brandon Davis, Teruto Yashabo Ishihara, Guido Canetti, Michinori Tanaka, and Shinichi Shimizu. And then he lost to Alex Caceres, and that got turned to a no contest because Alex got caught with weed. So that's actually a win.
And Yaya was bad.
Yeah, and Yaya's a specialist. Yaya is going to take you down and win minutes and potentially moments with his submissions. But yeah, I mean, like even Ronnie Yaya at 50 years old would be dangerous because if he gets to a dominant position, he's just going to stay there. So I like Quinones a lot in this spot. I mean, this guy is striking is for real, dude. He's a big, long bantamweight, and he uses his length very well. His jab is really nice. His kicks are really nice. But, Kang, Mr. Perfect, I mean, that's a great nickname because the guy's good everywhere. And he's a good minute winner. He can win moments with his submission game. And he's seen a pretty decent level of competition for his entire pro career. So, I mean, it's an interesting fight. But if we look at the props here, I mean, it's definitely telling us to bet these overs. When you get these big green numbers here in this part of the spreadsheet, and we've got a 12-fight sample size to draw from, I mean, it does like it, but we're laying juice, so we have to be careful. A guy like Christian Quinones is finishing at a pretty good rate here. He's got a lot of knockouts, and he uses his length very well, and he's definitely got power on the feet, man. The way he slept Taha was really nice. He dropped him. He was controlling that distance beautifully up to that point. Taha was like, fuck this, I'm closing the distance. The first time he lunged in, he got caught and dropped. So, I mean, I do like Quinones to win this fight. But, I think we have a little more to find out about how he's going to perform at this level. So there's really nothing on the sheet that's really jumping out on me on this one.
Yeah, me neither. Not from a time prop perspective, but we will move on. We got 32 you live in chat. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on a Monday evening to start your fight week off. I know you guys didn't get stat diggers, so it's the best we can do. It's the best I can do.
Wednesday, baby. Pub Sports Radio on Wednesday. Stat diggers will be back once Brady gets off the cruise that he is on with his wife. He's like, my wife and I are going on a cruise, and they wouldn't take me with them.
The temerity of him.
Home like I'm George Costanza.
The temerity of him to take days off.
Unbelievable, right?
Balls. So we finally have our first minus under, and I'm confused as to why this even opened at 2.5 and not 1.5. Yeah. But Jimmy Flick against Alessandro Costa under 2.5, an insane minus 250 for this fight. Over 2.5 comes back at plus 200. There's some narrative stuff here with Flick, like retiring and then not retiring and then looking like shit against Charles Johnson. And Alessandro Costa, Albazi fight, I think you can kind of put that aside as like, that's a levels game.
Yeah.
I don't know that Flick is, especially at this stage in his career, but minus 250, Weezy. What do you think 1.5 is going to end up being priced at?
Well, so we're overpriced by 31.5% here, according to the benchmark, and 32% here. So let's say we're overpriced by like 25% here. That would bring us to like a 53%, which means we'd be paying like minus 115, minus 120 on an under 1.5 is what I would predict that we would see this at. And I think it would get bet down to maybe minus 130, minus 140. I think that the problem with this is that, you know, we saw Flick, the recency bias is making us even overpay for this one, you know, because we saw him kind of just go out there and get absolutely dusted. And there were narrative issues as well with him coming off of the retirement, you know, and we know how dangerous Jimmy Flick is. The guy finished Durden with a flying triangle, for Christ's sake. You know, he's going to be really live to finish this fight early. So, but I'm not seeing any value here, man. I mean, we're paying big money for this. You know, under 2.5 happens 40% of the time, Lou. We're paying 71.4%. So you got to be so sure about it. I mean, I could see people parlaying it, you know. I don't have a problem with that because it would be shocking to see Jimmy Flick go to a decision in the UFC, especially against a guy like Costa, who's got pretty good boxing and a good submission game in his own right. So, yeah, this is kind of a stay away from me here, but I don't hate people parlaying this. Flick has been a decision twice in 16 fights outside the UFC, and he's never been a decision in the UFC. So he reminds me of Derek Minner. You don't bet overs in Derek Minner fights.
No, you do not. So what do you think we're going to get 1.5 at? Minus 120? Minus
Yeah, I think it'll open around even. I think that would put it in. That would put it right here where it would be priced similarly to this, you know. And at that rate, we're looking at a 53%, you know, implied probability, which means maybe minus 115.
Okay, I do have. This is my first track bet. I have a parlay with Costa, and Ronnie Barcelos is one of my plays. It's already in. I just like Costa a lot in this spot, and I do think he gets it done by finish, probably at a pretty high clip here. But that's more a negative against Flick than my faith in Costa. A little bit from column A and a little bit of column B here. But speaking of the aforementioned Ronnie Barcelos, we are at bantamweight. Barcelos versus Miles Johns. Not surprising. Under 2.5 is plus odds here, plus 155. Over 2.5 is minus 185. I've had some problems betting Barcelos in my life. I'm not gonna lie, Weezy. This guy's frustrated me betting him and betting against him for that matter. So this feels like a pretty easy over, especially with John's cardio and the way Barcelos isn't really a big finisher on this level. But maybe I'm missing something. What do we got?
Well, I bet the under here, Lou, but I got plus 185 on the under 2.5 rounds, which was, it just didn't make sense because at that number, right, 185, here we go, right? That's a 35% implied probability, underpriced by 7.5% according to the benchmark. 15 combined fights for these guys at the UFC level. 7 of them have finished inside the distance. That's 46%, 11% better than 35 here. And these guys are going under 2.5 rounds, 4.15% higher than what the division does. But now we're looking at a plus 140, was it? Or yeah, I think it was 140 or 135. Either way, it's still a trifecta bet. So the prop template is telling us that that this is cheap because when you compare all of these comparisons, you're getting an underpriced line, and these are the ways that you determine value. So that's like I think the best feature of this prop template, Lou, is the fact that it identifies when lines are underpriced and it identifies when they're overpriced. So if you're seeing a line that you like and you're like, oh, these guys finish. And, you know, but it's saying that you got to pay minus 300 and you're overpaying on all 3 metrics. Yeah, it probably does finish. But if you make that bet 10 times, you know, you're probably going to come out, you know, behind the 8 ball more times than you don't because you're overpaying. You just can't keep overpaying in life. So the template likes the unders here. And here's the other thing. I don't think Miles Johns is that good.
Bootsy likes the unders too.
Yeah, Bootsy's fucking freaking out. I don't know what the hell he's barking at, but he's been going for like the last 10 minutes. So there must be a UPS truck out front. But either way, I think Ronnie Barcelos is levels above Miles Johns. And if this fight goes to the ground, Ronnie Barcelos is going to choke him out with that 3rd-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt that he has. You know, and his dad is like a 5th-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And he's been training, you know, with his old man since he was 5 years old. This is a levels thing on the feet and on the ground. I think Barcelos is better everywhere. And so I think I took the shot at plus 185 for the under 2.5. Stylistically, I don't think it's the best call in the world, but it was just an egregiously underpriced line. And I think that Barcelos absolutely has finishing equity here. And Miles Johns, guess what? He's been finished in both of his UFC losses. So, I mean, if Barcelos is, 70% implied on this line, I think there's a decent chance for a finish here.
Yeah, my only concern with Barcelos is that he's 86 years old. So him and Ronnie Yanya graduated together.
Bootsy, relax. Sorry.
You told him. Well, you told him, Weezy. You told him.
Right back to barking.
All right. Well, we're going to get to the next fight on the card at welterweight. Finally getting out of the little guy category here. Muslim Salikhov against Nicholas Dalby. The under 2.5 is plus 150. Over 2.5 coming back at minus 180. I do have a bet on Dalby here. I took the dog shot, but I kind of feel like if Dalby wins, it's by decision.
Yeah.
Maybe mixing in some grappling. So that would lead me to an over. But it's welterweight. So like we're getting a little bit of a step up from our charts at 125 and 135 for this one.
Yeah, look at Dalby. 9 of his 10 fights have went to decision at the UFC level. The one that didn't was the one where Ronson knocked him out in the first round, but then Ronson pissed hot for goofballs.
Not weed. For not weed.
Yeah, for not weed, for goofballs, So like, and Dalby's one of these guys. He's got this legendary durability. If you guys haven't seen the Ross Houston fight in Cage Warriors, it was literally stopped in the 3rd round because the entire canvas was covered with blood and neither guy could plant their feet to throw a punch. Mark Goddard, before calling the fight, actually screamed, "This is ridiculous," and then just waved it off. And he's like, these guys are not fighting anymore. I think you would have to probably kill Nicholas Dalby to get him out of there. And Salikhov is not like this vicious finisher at the UFC level. I think this goes to decision. I mean, I think it's a good play in not only Dalby being a minute winner and not a moment winner at this level, but also him being an incredibly durable guy. I think that this probably goes to decision 7 or 8 times out of 10. So the fight goes at minus 150, only overpriced by 10%. I think it's a pretty good price. So I think that this thing goes. We've got an 18-fight sample size here. 12 of those 18 fights have went to decision. That's 66%. We're only paying 60% on the line. And these guys are going to decision at a 16% rate higher than what the division does. Salikhov finish only prop, I think is a decent look, but it's overpriced because I don't think he's finishing Dalby. So I mean, I think you're gonna make that bet and then you're gonna get that money back. So fight goes minus 150. I think it's bettable here.
Yeah, I don't think it's an unreasonable price. And I think Worley Alves is certainly more dangerous and more well-rounded than Salikhov. He's not as good of a striker, but he's certainly got more waves to finish a human being. So I think Dalby will at least, and maybe he mixes in some takedowns, man. I mean, I know it's not really his bread and butter, but Salikhov just never faces guys that want to take him down. So we shall see. We have a question. If Muslim decides to wrestle, no, I don't think. First, Muslim's not wrestling here. I'd be pretty surprised if he did, and I think that would be a bad stylistic move for you. What do you think, Weezy?
Yeah, let's have a look at the numbers here. See how many takedowns he's shot. So Salikhov is 7 of 20 on his takedowns in 8 fights. So he's averaging 1.2 takedowns per 15 minutes. But look at 8.33% control time. So his fights are taking place at distance striking range 85% of the time. Now, Dalby only has 66% takedown defense, and he's been controlled for 27% of his UFC career. So if Salikhov were to get takedowns, this maybe would be a guy that he would try it against, but he's just not that committed of a wrestler. 20 takedown attempts in 87 minutes of cage time. That's maybe 1 attempt a round, maybe a little bit more than that. So I don't think we can count on Salikhov to get 4 takedowns in 9 minutes of control time. It's really not his game. He's a distant striker.
And he's 39. So he wants to conserve cardio. I can't see a grapple heavy approach here.
Yeah.
either.
It's just, low volume sniper against a high volume maniac. It's going to be an interesting fight, but I think it sees the scorecards.
All right, well, that is the main card opener. We are now on fight number 10. We're making good time, Weezy. Nicholas Mota against Manuel Torres. We have our first 1.5, and we have 2 1.5s on this card. This is our first under 1.5. Not a surprising line as far as I'm concerned. Minus 120 kind of sounds about right. Since Brady's not here, I'll just say it for Brady that Miguel Torres fights like he's on crack.
Yeah, Loco Torres, man.
And Mota,
Loco for a reason.
Mota's results in the UFC to this point. I know that he had the Jim Miller fight. I want to say it was on short notice. I'm pretty sure it was. The Cameron Van Camp fight was, Cameron Van Camp's there to be hit. But 2 finishes in those 2 fights. And Miguel Torres just doesn't have the time to be there very long. So I think you and I both love this under, correct?
Oh, yeah, I love the under. I absolutely love it. I've already bet it. I got it at minus 105. It's minus 120 now. And I mean, frankly, I think you can kind of even parlay it. Loco Torres has been out of the first round once in his career. Once. And he kind of fights like a madman. And when you look at how Mota finished Van Camp, Torres is the exact same build, length, type of fighter as Van Camp, and he folded him like a lawn chair. Dude, they were having prayer vigils over some of these dudes that Nick Mota has knocked out. And we've seen Mota finished as well. He's been finished. He's been knocked out. Everything that this fight, this is one I had circled at, let's try to find this opener. And the opener, it opened up at plus 160 for the under 1.5, Lou. That would have been such an easy 5-unit bet for me that, I wouldn't have even looked at the numbers. I'd have just been smack 5 units, let's go. And I know I could have arbed out at a much better price later on in the week if I wanted to. So love violence for this spot. But I wouldn't even fuck with that fight doesn't go to decision at minus 325, dude. Just take the under 1.5. The only time Torres has actually been out of the first round, he saw the scorecards, and Mota has been under 1.5 rounds 9 of 14 times outside the UFC and 2 of 2 in it. And Mota's fighting the much better level of competition here. So I think there's a lot of unknowns on Manuel Torres. Number one, there's no tape on this guy. There's no tape on this guy. Number 2, he's fought a pretty shitty level of competition overall. Number 3, go look at the guys that Nick Mota has been fighting on the regional scene. This guy was in the Ultimate Fighter House at the age of 20. He's got fights against Glyco Franca. He's got fights against Joe Solecki. He beat Joe Solecki. So this much better level of competition for Nick Mota, and both of these dudes have power. I think this money line's silly. I've got money on Mota, and I love the under 1.5 in this spot.
I see Daz is saying Torres by murder round 1. It's plus 175. It's not even really.
Not a lot of meat on that bone, but that's how Torres wins fights. This is going to be such a fun fight. Regardless of who you have your money on here, Torres versus Mota is fantastic matchmaking, and it's going to be a super fun fight.
I know that because this is main card, so probably by Wednesday on DraftKings, you'll be able to look at the alternate unders, or fight doesn't start round 3. So if you're just somebody who doesn't like the 1.5, that's not your style of betting, you probably still get an all right price. I think the Malott under was minus 110, and fight doesn't start round 3 was minus 200 for that.
Yep.
So you might get.
I bet that minus 200, Lou. because I just wanted. I said if it does go to the second round, give me the full 5 minutes. I feel absolutely that way.
So you might get a number like that for this if just the 1.5 is a little too dicey for you as a gambler. And we're going to move on to the one that people on Twitter are yelling at me for, since I have a bet on Lucas Almeida here. I went against Philadelphia, but he's in Langhorne. You know what else is in Langhorne, Weezy? Sesame Place. Not betting on Langhorne. Come on, man.
I don't know where Langhorne is, dude.
But you know what Sesame Place is.
What is Sesame Place? Sesame Street?
Yeah, it's like a kid's amusement park.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Okay.
His bro's training there. That
sounds delightful. like the happiest place on earth, which is we just have Manuel Torres training out of the happiest place on earth, Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico.
It's the happiest place to not the happiest place in some regards, but I'm gonna temper what I say here. So Pat Sabatini against Lucas Almeida. Now, Weezy, I'm not gonna lie, this is the one that confused me the most. Internet 2.5 is set at -150, coming back at +120. But Sabatini on the UFC level really hasn't shown a lot of finishing quality. Whereas I think all the finishing equity here, or most of it, would be Lucas Almeida, and he comes in as the dog. So why is this priced the way it is to you? Or do you think Sabatini does have some legit finishing equity here?
Submission equity for sure. I mean, Pat Sabatini's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he could submit anybody at this level. I kind of feel like he's a very good submission grappler, and we've seen him get fights to the ground and do very well there against solid competition. But I agree with you, dude. Lucas Almeida hits different. He does have the finishing equity in this spot, and Pat Sabatini is a very good grappler, but he's not this crazy control time monster. Let's look at the numbers here because it's important. We need to know how effective he's been. So 12 of 28 on the takedowns, 43%. Very good. 3.75 per 15 minutes. Very good. Oh, wow. 60% control time and 16% control time allowed. So that's what people are seeing, I think, is the fact that Pat Sabatini may not have the best striking, but he's only spending 23% of his time at distance striking range. So if that trend continues, Lucas Almeida's got a very small window in order to get that knockout. But how long did it take Damon Jackson?
Not long.
See? So we've got some missing information. We haven't seen Lucas Almeida face a takedown attempt yet in the contender. Well, in the UFC. He did get taken down by Zellhuber and held down for a little bit in the second round of their fight. So I kind of think that this does go over and they're plus money numbers. You know, Sabatini's been over 3 out of 5 times. He got knocked out by Damon Jackson, and then he wound up, you know, when Jamal Emmers
fluke finish.
I mean, Jamal Emmers put himself in a leg lock against a BJJ black belt, and not only that, he did it with a foothold, a toe hold, not even a heel hook of his own. He's going for a toe hold against a BJJ black belt, like they're going to tap to that. And then he winds up with his ankle underneath Pat's armpit, and then we didn't see Jamal Emmers for 18 months, did we? So hopefully
that's
Almeida,
why I kind of think he doesn't have the finishing equity. That's why I was like, well, he's got 1 finish out of 4 wins in the UFC level, and it was in a sense gifted to him by a mistake.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, Almeida's a finisher. That's the thing about him, right? I mean, we got 14 wins for Lucas Almeida, all 14 of them inside the distance. He wasn't finished in his only loss, you know, which was a barn burner against Zellhuber. That was a fun fight, but he had Zellhuber hurt in the first. You know, he was landing some big shots. That was a great fight. So
he had great moments in that fight.
He absolutely did. So, you know, I think this is a really fun fight. And, you know, we've seen Sabatini get sparked before. So, I mean, I could see the underhitting. I could see, and I see why it's a little bit juiced, because with Sabatini, you got finish equity with the submissions. With Lucas Almeida, you got finish equity with the knockout. But I kind of feel like it's Almeida who's got more of the finishing potential here. I mean, if he's not getting subbed in Brazil, right? That's pretty good. You know, there's a bunch of BJJ black belts out there fighting in Brazil, so maybe he will be able to dodge the submissions. And if he does, and Sabatini has control time like he's gotten 60%, maybe this thing does cruise over here at over 2.5 plus 120, goes to decision at plus 150. Definitely seriously underpriced according to the benchmark, and underpriced in a 6-fight sample size according to their combined UFC performances. So if you made me bet this one, Lou, I'd be taking those plus money numbers on the over.
All right, plus 120 it is. We are going to move on. We got 3 fights left. This one I'm confused about, Weezy. I don't know what to do with this. Christian Leroy, Duncan, undefeated, 8-0, coming off we'll call it a finish win against Dusko. I mean, I guess technically it's a finish win. Against Armen Petrosian, I was actually surprised to see Armen Petrosian open as a dog. I'm not really surprised about the over 2.5. I feel like Petrosian's kind of durable, so I kind of get it. But I don't know. There's just something telling me to kind of stay away from this total. What do you think? What do you think on this one?
Yeah, the thing about Duncan is that there's not much of a pro career, but there's a massive amateur career. I think 23 fights or some shit. A lot of losses in there too, like 5 or 6 losses. Dude's never been finished, right? And Petrosian's never been finished either. At least maybe I'm wrong about that.
He's definitely been rocked a lot in the
Petrosian has been knocked out once in 2 losses, and I think it was on the regional scene. He got caught in the first round by some dude. But yeah, he lost to Caio Borralho by decision in the UFC. But other than that, he's been in there with guys like Dobson, who hits really hard, Gregory Rodriguez, who hits really hard, and he's not getting knocked out by those guys, but he did get chin checked on the regional scene in Russia. So Duncan has never been finished. Petrosian finished once, 18 combined professional fights and a lot of amateur fights for Duncan. Let's go back to the prop template here. I don't like that these overs are juiced, but I tend to think that this does go over. But am I laying minus 110? Because, the thing is, we've had to see Petrosian fight out of a lot of takedown attempts in the past. My read on this fight is that these guys are both going to get the fight that they want. And that's a distance kickboxing match. They both got a lot of power. They both got precision. I could see one of these dudes getting sparked, but I'm just not getting I'm not getting enough. We got a 4-fight sample size at the UFC level. That doesn't tell us enough. And these lines are fairly priced. So I'm staying away from this one. But I like the plus money on Petrosian because I think both guys get the fight that they want here.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with this one yet, definitely from a money line perspective. But let's get to the co-main event. It's Armen season. We got Armen Sarukian. What is happening here? Oh yeah, I don't know why these two won't. Well, these fights are so good, they're not going to scroll across the ticker. We're just putting them on the bottom of the screen. That Armen Sarukian against Joaquim Silva. Sarukian is an absolutely absurdly, in this economy, minus 900 the last I looked. Under 1.5, minus 125. Over 1.5, minus 105. Weezy, I'm shocked that it's a 1.5 line. I get that it's a massive favorite. I do.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Am I crazy that this should be a 2.5 or?
Well, it opened as a 2.5. And I think people smashed it. And, as gamblers, we need to be a little bit agnostic about how we feel about certain fighters. And we need to be a little bit more concerned about where the line is and whether there's value there or not, And right now you got minus 1,000 on Sarukian, so it's hard to make money there. But then you probably figure, if Sarukian's minus 1,000, let's just bet the under, because he's going to go through this dude Silva like a hot knife through butter. But the problem is that Sarukian's not like a knockout artist, right? And if he takes down Silva, you got like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt who's like a tournament winner. This guy's a high-level Brazilian jiu-jitsu player. You might be giving him the fight that he wants, But we did see Sarukian do that to Joel Alvarez and absolutely just pound his head through the fucking canvas.
That was a statement. That was an incredible statement win.
And that's how he treated a BJJ black belt with a lot of submissions on his record, like 18 or 19 on Joel Alvarez's record. And, he wasn't worried about the level of submissions from that guy. So I get it. But look, we're overpaying, Lou. 26%, here, 22% on the under 1.5. The combined performances of these guys, we got a 15-fight sample size. They've only been under 1.5 rounds 5 out of 15 times. So getting this over 1.5 at a 16% discount here, a 15.5% discount here, we got a good sample size of fights. And then you're saying, Joaquim, just hold on for 7.5 minutes. I'd rather take the minus 105 for the over than lay that minus 125 on the under and then be like, you put yourself into a situation where if Sarukian doesn't look minus 1,000, you're not cashing that bet because it's not like Sarukian's this crazy finisher. He's just not. He's a wrestler that wins a ton of minutes on the ground with his control time, with his top control, and his striking is absolutely serviceable. It's UFC level, so he's not out of his depth when the fight is on the feet, especially not against this guy Silva. So, yeah, I mean, Sarukian probably gets the job done, but I think this is an extremely overpriced violence line, and I think that the value is definitely on these unders over here.
Did you see?
I'm sorry, on the overs. On the overs.
Did you see what Sarukian's in the distance number is?
What is it, like minus 200, minus 250, some shit? Wow.
265.
Woo! That's expensive.
It's a little bit.
That's very expensive.
We have gotten to the main event, guys. If you could, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. It all helps us, the two of us, the vacationing lazy bastard, Brady. I'm just kidding. The guy who owes me multiple substitute appearances, Brady, and Monk. It does help us out, and thank you guys again for tuning in. We are right to the main event at middleweight. Marvin Vittori against Jared Cannonier, under 4.5, plus 120, the over 4.5. Not surprisingly here, minus 150. What is surprising is all the money that came in on Cannonier almost immediately. I am as I feel like I'm on the Vittori side here. But if I like Vittori, it's because I like him to have a grappling path. So I feel like this over, just like eyeballing it, seems right. What do you think?
Yeah, so we've got 63 fights that have happened in the middleweight division since 2013 that have been scheduled for 5 rounds. 39% of them, 39.68% have went over 4.5 rounds. We're paying 60% here. So we're overpaying by 20% according to that benchmark. But it's a Marvin Vittori fight. They don't let you put the barbed wire on the gloves anymore. They used to call that the Stinga. You remember that, Lou, back in the day? But they don't let you do that anymore. They don't let you bring a shovel into the cage anymore, like the old days of the ladder matches and things like that. So how is Jared Cannonier going to finish this fight?
They don't let you take him behind the casino in the desert anymore. The whole world's fucked up.
It's crazy, dude. The world that we grew up in, Lou, is gone. Now we just got to survive in this new world,
I remember when men were men and sheep were scared.
You got that right, buddy. Yeah. And so here we go. 7 of these guys, 8 combined UFC fights scheduled for 5 rounds have went over 4.5. So, I like this minus 150 for the over 4.5. I think that this hits 70, 80% of the time. Vittori's not a finisher. And it's not like Cannonier's a guy that's going to be looking for a way out ever, So I see this thing going to decision. I don't think minus 150 is too much to pay. We very rarely have an 8-fight sample size for guys in 5-round fights. And the 8-fight sample size is telling us that there's all kinds of value here. So I do like the minus 150. But you know what I did? I looked at the lines for Cannonier by knockout and Cannonier by decision, right? And Cannonier by knockout was like plus 200. And Cannonier by decision was plus 300. And I'm like, how the fuck are they pricing the knockout at more expensive when he's fighting Marvin Vittori, a dude who's never been knocked out in his entire career? He's been hit clean so many fucking times. He's never in trouble. So there's no way that this guy's getting knocked out. I like the over 4.5 at minus 150 for this spot.
Yeah.
And I bet Cannonier by decision at plus 300.
The only thing I want to add to this is if it does get late in this fight, we've seen Vittori. I know it was against Holland, but we've seen Vittori go in these 5-round fights late and get takedowns and in no urgency to get any kind of finish. He's happy to win minutes on the ground. If Vittori does have a 2-3 round lead late, it's very possible you can see him do that. But we have made it to the last part of the show, and you still have 6 minutes to spare, Weezy. We're moving it along. We are now at the probability parlay. It's really why everybody's here. What do we got for this week's probability parlay, Weez?
So, the Torres Mota violence has to be baked in there somehow. Maybe a Dalby Salikhov over. maybe some Flick Costa violence. I like for this week, I definitely like the local Torres under 1.5 at minus 120. And I want to parlay with that with something that feels assured to happen. And then that'll get us plus money. So, like, I really do think that the Costa Flick fight finishes inside the distance. I really do feel like the Vittori Cannonier fight goes over 4.5 rounds. So why don't we parlay the Torres Mota under 1.5 rounds at minus 120 with the over 4.5 rounds in the Vittori Cannonier fight at minus 150? That'll get us a big fat plus money number. You are muted.
That's 120 and 150.
Yeah.
So that gets you a $100 bet'll profit, 205.56 on that play.
Yeah, so plus 205 probability parlay this week. And we're going to go the over 4.5 rounds in the main event and the under 1.5 rounds in the Torres Mota. Let's get it.
All right, I love it. Well, guys, we have made it to the end. I'm amazed we did all 14 in less than an hour. Very happy. Weezy, tell the people where they can find you in 4 minutes.
Yeah, in 4 minutes, you can find me on the Die Hard MMA podcast on Pub Sports Radio with my man Clint. We're going to break down all 14 of these fights. I'm going to tell you guys about all the bets that I have. We're going to have some fun. Join us there. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy. You can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. You can find me on Pub Sports Radio. And you can find all these fabulous analytics on Uncle Weezy's Patreon, the prop template, the heat map, matchup template. All this stuff is available. If you are an analytical bettor, you like putting that data in there to make your decisions, holler at your Uncle Weezy. I got the stats for you.
All right. Lou Betya on Twitter for me. Prop show later in the week. Happy hour on Friday, all on this channel. That is it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Good luck this week on your bets, and we will see you soon.